It was interesting. Unless you have swearing in.
That was good.
That was good, yeah.
I'd like to call the Monday, April 25th Annual City Council meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Alderman Santee.
Here.
Alderman Glad.
Here.
Alderman Schaefer.
Here.
Alderman Curry.
Here.
Alderman Wimmer.
Here.
Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Alderman Condon.
Here.
All present, Mayor.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City of McHenry's mission statement is as follows. The City of McHenry is dedicated to providing its citizens, businesses, and visitors with the highest quality of programs and services in a customer-oriented, efficient, and fiscally responsible manner. This evening, we have a proclamation in recognition of National Small Business Week that I'll read into the record now. Whereas America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard, and whereas from the storefront shops that anchor our downtown to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstones of our nation's promise. And whereas small business owners have energy and passion for what they do, and whereas when we support small business, jobs are created and our community preserves its unique culture, and whereas because this country's 28 million small businesses create nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available through the U.S. Small Business Administration and other government agencies, and whereas the City of McHenry supports and joins in this national effort to help small businesses do what they do best, grow, create jobs, and ensure that our community remains as vibrant tomorrow as it is today. Now therefore, I, Susan E. Lau, Mayor of the City of McHenry, hereby proclaim May 1st through May 7th as National Small Business Week in the City of McHenry and urge our citizens to shop McHenry. And this proclamation will be displayed here at the Municipal Center. The next item on the agenda is the public comment portion of the meeting. No one has signed in for that purpose this evening. Is there anyone that wishes to address the council? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Looking for a motion to approve. Alderman Wimmer,
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
is there a second? Alderman Curry?
Second.
Discussion, Alderman Wimmer?
Nothing.
Alderman Peterson?
I have no questions.
Alderman Condon?
No questions.
Alderman Santee?
I have no questions.
Alderman Glad?
Teeny tiny this time.
Yeah. Alderman Schaefer?
I just had a question. When we do those, the parts, beer and wine things, do we ever ask anybody, because there's one on there where there's like 30 people, but there's 1 keg of beer. So, I mean, that's like, if it's a full keg or whatever, I mean, that's a lot of beer for 30 people, but it's a birthday party for a kid, so.
We do our best to guide them through that process. Sometimes they just don't know. I mean, rarely have we had a problem that I can think of that it's been a problem.
It's just, it's just something that always, I mean, it doesn't bother me, but it might be, something to watch out for when that event comes or something. Maybe that's a good thing to look at or something, I don't know.
The thing I think that we worry a little more about is the number of people. Sometimes, again,
Right.
the amounts that they put down aren't always, sometimes it's just a guess at that point and they're not really sure, and so they
Right.
put down those things that we're more concerned about.
Well, I'm sure you could always put down, 20 people and, and a 6-pack, and no one's gonna check that either when there's 10 coolers there, so, okay. I was just wondering. Thanks.
Alderman Curry?
No questions.
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Santee.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer.
Yes.
Alderman Curry,
Yes.
Alderman Wimmer,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Alderman Condon.
Yes.
All ayes, Mayor.
Thank you. The next item is a motion to approve the fiscal year 2016-17 budget as proposed and recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Derek?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a long presentation on the budget tonight. There's a transmittal letter that's in the budget document itself, pages I think 1 through 10, numbered pages that does a pretty detailed job of outlining by fund revenues and expenditures. But you know, in going back through it for tonight and through it over the last few months, and especially in preparation for the State of the City address that was given a couple of months ago, I just wanted to point out, you know, really for all of us, the effort, the accomplishments that we have had over the last fiscal year. And I mean, they're really amazing. And I just wanted to take a second to sit back, for us to sit back and kind of take these in. I'm not saying that the recommendations were always easy on these projects or these programs, or that the decision by City Council was always easy on these. But nonetheless, we were able to work together, hash these out, and implement some programs and/or projects that, and again, the list, I'm sure I'm missing some important ones, but you know, these are pretty considerable for a community of our size and within a time frame that we're talking about. But just the ones that I highlighted from 15-16, you know, the wastewater treatment plant consolidation, both the implementation of the plan and the identification and going through the process of the funding mechanism for that, the McHenry Recreation Facility construction and opening. I think we were at 1,118 members or something last week, and I know that we're probably over that by now because that number's a week old. So just the success of that facility, that project, the dispatch consolidation partnership, you know, the development of the IGAs, the working with the other municipalities, you know, the work that the police department has put in on creating these partnerships with other municipalities and other jurisdictions like the McHenry Township Fire Protection and the other fire protection district or fire districts that we're working with, or departments, or and again, the council's willingness to be supportive of that dispatch consolidation and really going back a number of years to supporting decisions that were made by previous councils and wanting to maintain the dispatch facilities here in the city of McHenry. The City Hall customer service relocation, again, on a scale not as big as some of the other ones we mentioned, but still something that we all felt, I think, from staff to council as an important customer service change to be able to, you know, make this building for residents and businesses or any other customers that may come here more user friendly. And again, from the work of the individual employees and admin that helped lay out the new space and worked with Bill and the rest of the staff to be able to put it together, design it, and really take ownership of it is an amazing process. The whole engineering discussion, again, I know that it was difficult sometimes to have that, yet we were able to come forward with an agreement, something that we could together move forward on, that we'll be implementing in fiscal year 16-17 with the hiring of the engineering project manager and the change in relationship with HR Green, the pre-qualification of engineering firms, et cetera, et cetera. So again, a step forward in terms of that, or at least a change in how we provide that service. The community development director position, the willingness to understand the importance of that position as it relates to the operation of a department that handles a lot of, you know, obviously building inspection, code enforcement, planning and development type of issues, the ability to hire within and bring Ross on to be able to really tackle a lot of the issues in that department. And the numerous economic development efforts that we've had from smaller projects to larger ones that required, or at least council approved, sales tax rebates or property tax incentives on. Again, Fabrique was a huge one that we were able to support, and council will see that move forward here soon. The addressing three points of major intersections in town that were issues for a number of years, from the CVS pharmacy at Elm and in front to the Big R and the U-Haul. You know, again, three of the four corners there were issues, and we were able to tackle two of those corners last year and get some viable businesses in there that I think will be there for a long time. The fifth consecutive year of having a frozen property tax levy, and the ability of council to see the need to do that, or to continue to do that, and make that choice. Again, smaller issues like the achievement of the first ever Distinguished Budget Award that we were able to get, the development of the fund balance and reserve policy. These are all things, I think I hit every department in the city in terms of major projects or efforts that we've been able not to tackle as the staff, and not to tackle just as the city council, but be able to come and work together on and find collaboration and moving forward in 15, 16, and implementing a lot of these in 16 and 17. On to the highlights of the 16-17 budget. And again, these will be brief because the details are in the transmittal letter or have been discussed at the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. Importantly, the budget is operationally balanced. The spending plan for all funds is just over $50 million. The general fund spending plan, including a capital improvement program and capital equipment, is $22,726,606. Just as some important information or facts, I guess, the total capital projects between the general fund, CIP projects, or capital equipment projects, and the water sewer utility fund is let's call it $8.1 million in capital projects between those two. That represents the general fund projects are $4.488,300, and again, those are capital improvement and capital equipment projects. I asked Carolyn to go back as far as she could and look at the numbers from general fund capital projects, and this probably, at least by $1 million, is bigger than any general fund capital improvement program that the city has done, at least as far back as we could find records. Now, sure, we issued some bonds for street programs and things in the past, but in any single year, the spending plan for capital projects, I think before this was $3.5 million. So we're $1 million over that just in the general fund projects. Out of that general fund, that $4.4 or $4.48 million, $2.4 million of that amount is road projects. That includes $2 million in local street program, which is about 4 times what we spent last year in local street projects. $320,000 of that is for the Bull Valley Curran project. That's our 20% match, although as we just found out late last week, and we'll get information out to council, that that project actually came in over $300,000 under the EOPC on it. So instead of the EOPC was 1.4, and it came in at 1.1 something. So obviously our 20% match will go down on that too. Our plan is to take whatever the difference is in our 20% match and just put that into the local streets program to put some more money towards local streets. $900,000 for police dispatch. Again, we identify in the budget and throughout the process that we see some of that funding coming back either through seizure funds that we know are on their way, or through potential funding through the state 911 board, whether it's for the facility improvements or technology improvements. But again, just that willingness to see the importance of that police dispatch and front the cost for that project development. $350,000 plus in parks or park facility improvements. And this is a combination of general fund and projects that are funded by other funds, like the park development fund for the boat ramp project and some of the other ones. But again, the parks projects just out of the general funds are over $110,000, so a substantial amount. The water sewer utility projects are about $3.6 million out of the water sewer utility fund or the capital development fund. That amount includes $103,000 in water improvements, $290,000 in utility system improvements, including water, about $100,000 and $110,000 in water main and sewer main replacement, which again, we know that just like streets, that infrastructure is aging and we need to address it. And of course, the big project there is the $2.9 million for the wastewater treatment plant force main project. But still importantly, we're able to fund that out of the existing water, sewer, capital development funds. Just back to the general fund for a second. I think I said this at both the Finance and Personnel Committee meetings, and I included or referenced it at least in the transmittal letter. Staff's plan anyway moving forward with the general fund capital projects is that now that we've established the targeted minimum balance in the general fund, which is about 4 months worth of expenditures, budgeted expenditures for that year. Our plan is to shift whatever surplus remains in that account this year based on what the fund balance was at the end of last year and what we're spending on the capital improvement projects this year will be about $1.3 million or $1.1 million. That could go up based on the year end, any additional revenues that may come in through the rest of the end of the year and whatever the audit shows. But to shift that surplus out of the general fund balance into the capital improvement program and the capital equipment program so that we can all see moving forward into the next budget year, 17-18, we can have an amount in mind or at least see on paper what amount we have to work with for capital improvement projects and capital equipment projects. And so we have a starting number right from the beginning of that budget cycle that we can say we have $1.5 million, $2 million, whatever that amount is. That doesn't include whatever the budgeted surplus is, which wasn't a large amount this year, but still we'll at least all have an idea of what amount of money we have to work with going into that next year's budget. From an operational standpoint, the focus of the budget, and again, this is big picture, for next year will be the police dispatch consolidation. I talked about the facility improvements for dispatch. We have technology issues that we need to continue to address, the staffing issues, working with bringing additional the partners on through the IGAs or customers on that aren't part of the IGAs, and that balancing act between construction, the technology implementation, and what the appropriate staffing levels are, taking in mind or taking account for whatever the revenues being brought in for dispatch are. Engineering, again, I referenced that we've started the process for the hiring of the engineering project manager, and we will meet with HR Green coming up here in the next few weeks to start to lay out that transition period for the change and how the engineering function is going to work based on our discussions at the council level. We'll hopefully continue the momentum of the recreation center, begin longer-term planning for expansion. And again, this could be a few years out there, but important to start that planning for it, to kind of lay out for us and the public what those next phases could be, what potential costs of those phases could be, and what funding is going to be required to be able to move forward with those. But if we have them, we can show them, identify them. It's something that at least we can all work for. And of course, to continue that individual membership for the center, as well as develop corporate sponsorship and partnership programs for the center. So that'll be important next year also. Rollout of the redesigned website, again, a smaller project compared to some of the other ones that we mentioned or I mentioned, but still one that's important. We all know and have all expressed our desire to have a stronger website, a more up-to-date website that's more user-friendly both for us and for our residents and businesses, that includes timely information, is more transparent or provide more transparent information to the public, and we'll include the link to the video city council meetings. It's easy for people to find and be able to watch the business that has been conducted at city council meetings. Continued support of community events. I mean, again, that's something that we do really, really well. Much more than many other communities that I know in terms of being able to work outside the box and supporting community events. That's a testament really to all departments, police, public works, parks, even in regards to signage with community development, to be able to work with user groups and help support community events. And that's also an expanded band concert schedule, which I know we talked about today. We'll start in late May and run through, in partnership with the farmers market, run through the end of September this year, which is probably the longest band season that we've ever had, and expanding the farmers market to make that even more desirable for the community. And then just as a general comment, we'll continue to, like we have done in the past, continue to seek increased efficiencies in our operations with the minimal impact on budget as we can. So again, those are highlights of accomplishments from the year that we're in now, that we're finishing up. The big level highlights of the budget for next year. The purpose of the agenda item tonight, as the mayor identified, is transmit to council for adoption the fiscal year 16-17 annual budget. First draft of the budget document was presented to, actually a pretty lengthy, probably too lengthy, discussion was held on March 23rd at Finance and Personnel Committee. It was transmitted to the council prior to that on March 11th. That meeting was followed up by another Finance and Personnel Committee meeting on April 4th, and by a 2-to-1 vote was recommended by the committee to be forwarded to council for consideration and adoption this evening. Therefore, if council concurs, a motion should be made to adopt the fiscal year 16-17 budget as proposed and recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking for a motion? Alderman Wimmer?
Make a motion to approve the fiscal year 2016-17 budget as proposed and recommended by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? Alderman Condon? Excuse me. Any discussion, Alderman Wimmer?
The budget process is always a grueling time for staff and council. This year was no different. But I'd just like to thank the staff for maintaining a positive and professional attitude for the whole thing.
Thank you. Alderman Peterson?
That and the members of the committee. And I'd just like to say, I came over to pay my water bill, and some of the things that we did with this year's budget and building and things, and look forward to next year's budget. Our new reception area here is really great.
It's awesome, isn't it?
I just have to say, it was, people were coming in and out, and it was easy, and it worked. So.
Thank you. Alderman Condon?
I agree with Alderman Wimmer. I'd really like to thank staff for all of your input. You make it easy to go through the budget, and that makes it easier for us to look at it as a whole. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Santee?
I appreciate all the work that staff has done on this budget. It's definitely consuming, and I tried to dig into it on a couple occasions, and then actually attended one of the, I wanted to try to get to both of them, but I wasn't able to attend the first one. Or actually, yeah, I just came into the second one. There were some questions, and I'm reading through the minutes, and I just don't quite understand a couple of issues. One of them being raises, which are just extraordinarily, and I know we're only talking about a couple positions here, but extraordinarily high. Just looking through that, and I followed up on the notes, and on the one position, there's a title change. Is that correct, what I'm understanding here, from the general administration to a deputy city clerk? Is that correct?
That happened, yeah, that actually happened last fiscal year.
Okay. What's a discrepancy there in regards to our window? I mean, is it an automatic increase in salary? How do we do that? Is there anything written that tells us where to go there on a percentage?
Well, here's the response to the budget in terms of salaries, wages in general. And again, this is a non-bargaining unit response, okay? Because bargaining units, we have 3 contracts we work under. Each contract has different percentages in regards to steps, and then what we negotiate in terms of the annual. It's cost of living is what the terminology is in the contract, but it's not based on cost of living. I mean, it's not based on anything. That's just the number. That's just the term that's used. So the response is in regards to non-bargaining unit employees. Last year, we implemented a system that was a combination of the Consumer Price Index for urban areas, the CPIU, and merit. Previous to that time frame, non-bargaining unit employees were on a 10-step system. So each year they would get an automatic, each year up until the time the economy tanked, got basically a 2-step process. They moved up a step in the table, and then they were eligible also for a cost of living adjustment, similar to the bargaining unit employees. Since back in 2008, 9, or whenever we made adjustments based on where the economy was going, there were I think that the percentage over that period up until last year was that non-bargaining unit employees had received like 1.3%, and that was an average over those 7 years. Some years they received no increases. Some years it was a quote-unquote cost of living increase. Some years it was a step or a half-step increase. It kind of varied all over the place based on what type of funding or revenues were available to be able to provide non-bargaining unit employees with an increase. Beginning last year, based on input that the council provided the staff, we got rid of that step system for non-bargaining unit employees. So there was no automatic, because it was frozen, to take a step back, because that was frozen over time, was a point of frustration for non-bargaining unit employees. There was no way for them to understand or know what they were going to get for increases from one year to the next. Now, based on how the economy was, it's not all that surprising, but in order to create some mechanism that both we could understand and budget for, and staff, non-bargaining unit staff, could plan and budget for, we implemented the merit-based system. So the basis of that is the CPIU. The end of 14, that number was 0.8. The end of 15, that number was 0.7%, but that's just the base. So any amount over that is based that an individual receives is based purely on merit. The budget amount that we plugged in, so to say that everybody's going to get 2% or everybody's going to get 3% is not the case, because the amount that their actual raise is going to be somewhere in between, because people are going to get 2, some will get 3, some will get 1.5. I mean, it's all over. So for a budget figure, the number that we plugged in for non-bargaining unit employees was 2.5%. Again, some people will get less than that, some people will get more than that, but that's the number that we plugged in for the budget.
I'd add to that, taking on the additional responsibilities of being the deputy clerk, that requires a lot of knowledge, expertise, and work. Things have to be done in a timely manner. We are one of the few municipalities left in this county that have an elected clerk who has a full-time job, not here. And so we needed to fix that. Kathy Kunzer was a deputy clerk when she worked here, and after she retired, we did not have one. And that wasn't efficient or safe for our municipality.
Was Kathy a deputy or an assistant?
Deputy.
She was deputy. So if we're looking at standard averages increases at around 2.5 or 2.75, which I still think is kind of right on the border. So with your statement, you're thinking that's equivalent to 8 more % in that increase, in that salary?
So for that particular position, because that, basically it's a promotion. So right off the bat, a person that receives a promotion is eligible for a 5% increase based on our personnel policy.
That's in the policy, 5%?
Yes.
And then, I guess, because I'm looking at the minutes and I just read that one statement, where it's a new title. It's a title, it's a bump up. I can understand that, and my concern is just being that a double-digit increase is definitely a major concern with me. And I was just wondering if I could have seen more with regards to more information. Maybe this person evaluated unbelievably well in the last 5 years or something, 4.5 or 5 all the time. That would have, I would have looked at that a little bit differently, and probably put a little bit more weight to that. But if I can move on to there's another one, this building custodian. I don't know if I can find that answer there, if you want to help me.
The answer to that one is that the number, we had a discussion at the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, I believe the first one, or we answered a question after the first one, that when you looked at the wage for that individual in last budget year, it was misrepresented, it was not correct. That individual was actually at a different level for last fiscal year than the one that they were at a higher level last fiscal year than the one that was identified on the detail sheet or on the account detail sheet. So the jump was not as great after we corrected that number. That being said, the custodian is also part of a collective bargaining unit, and those increases are outlined in the collective bargaining unit agreement.
And those in the agreement would add up to, I think it's approximately around 11% for that person? Is that correct?
Not when you adjust the number. Again, as I just said, the number from last fiscal year was not correct. That should have been a higher number, a step higher number, so it would not be 11% from last year to this year.
Did her union come back and inform us of that, or is that something that we spotted?
No, we identified it as part of the
We
budget.
identified it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What is it, you know, what the difference is then?
Should have been 48 something, I don't remember what the dollars, exact dollars, but it was 48 something. So, I mean, it should be a 3% increase over those
3 years, or?
Between the two, the 14, 15, 16, 16, 17, it should be about 3.4%.
And the other position that we talked about was a maintenance worker position in Parks, where the person that Parks lost as an individual was lower on the union wage scale than the individual that moved over from the Streets Division of Public Works into that position. And so, because we don't put names, we only put the positions in there when we're developing the budget. One person with lower experience or lower on the union wage scale was out, replaced with somebody higher on the wage, much higher on the wage scale, and so that would be the result of a huge difference between last year's budgeted amount and this year's budget amount.
And I guess, I mean, those numbers are just enormous to me. I guess the one thing I just kind of thinking and looking into the future is that when we show these numbers, I don't know how that, that could affect any negotiations that occur within the next 2 or 3 years. That's something that'll probably be put right in front of our staff's face and said, we need to discuss this and start building from certain numbers going up. It's a possibility, but I'm just, this is a public document, and it's out there for all eyeballs, and it's something that I really have a tough time wrestling with, and I'll leave it at that.
Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying as far as there were mistakes last year, but then, it should reflect automatically without having to be asked that, we could say that there was a mistake, but we should also bring out exactly what the percentage really would have been if it had been posted properly last year. And then you wouldn't have as many people questioning that big jump if that's the case. Again, it's more than anything else, the more that's explained, the more or the less that, people question, that's all. I think we've made leaps and bounds as far as our budget this year compared to what we've done, and that doesn't mean that we couldn't take a couple little bitty steps next year, but we've taken some big leaps this year, and I'm really happy to see that we're doing a lot more in the streets programs and just different things around the city and whatnot, and that we're finding little spots here and there that we can spend money on for make our lives better for our residents.
Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Alderman Schaefer?
Since 3/4 of it's going to your board. I'd be happy to.
Let's figure that out. It's a higher percentage than
No, it
that.
might be. I'm probably right. My math is wrong. The one question I had is, the fiscal year ends the end of this month, right, 4/30?
Yes.
Will we be able to have, how soon, I guess, I just want to see like the actual versus budget for when the year-end numbers come out, so is that something we'll get quarterly like we have been? I think we've been getting that.
Yes, the adjustments for the audit aren't done until the end of June,
Oh, okay.
but, I mean, I can get you numbers sooner than that, but they won't be adjusted for, you know, the sales income taxes that come in June and July.
I guess, I don't know, personally, I don't know if anybody else would wanna see it, but maybe just your general summary, you know, that you have is good, and then when we get the audit stuff is even better. I just like to review the actual versus what we had budgeted and where it
Yeah, I mean,
came in
expenses
at.
will be pretty close, but revenues, obviously, we don't get some of it until
Right.
June and July, so those won't be adjusted yet, but yeah, we can definitely get that out.
Thank you.
Alderman Curry?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank staff. This is a lot of work. And I've been through these processes before, not here, but other places. And it's a tremendous amount of work, so I do want to recognize that, as others have as well. And again, just at the risk of repeating myself or ourselves, is that, you know, three things that I wrote down, three major changes this year were the fund policy, which Administrator just mentioned, and the shift of any excess funds to the capital fund, which I think is better than what we were doing before. I think that's an improvement. And then actually in this budget, I forget which page it's on, but there is actually a line item that shows that unassigned general fund balance and a projection. And so, you know, it's something I like to see, that we're actually looking at, and because we didn't have a line item before in prior budgets. And so I think that's, you know, that's a good thing. As was mentioned, this comes to council with a 2-to-1 vote from the Finance Committee. I was the no vote. And I wanted to mention the reasons for that. And there's three main ones. One is, and it's been mentioned before, the revenues are underestimated. And over the past 5 years, they've been underestimated about somewhere around 9%, as high as 11 to 12%. To me, we should estimate as close as possible to what we're going to actually get, and it's been consistent. It's been relatively consistent at least 8% every year for the past 5 years. So we know that's going to happen. And our current revenue projection is basically the same as it was 2 years ago, and I just don't think that's a reasonable expectation. Smaller items, not as important, but still bothersome to me. There are many expense line items in the detail sheets when you go through this, that the budgeted amount in many cases is the same year to year, but the expenditures are zero or very little. And so that would, now in some cases it may be that that's going to come in at the end of the year. That could very well be. But if you have zero expenditures and you have a budget and you put forward the same budget number, if you have zero expenditures, you really don't need the budget number for it. So, but most of those aren't as big items in terms of totals, so it's not as huge a deal. And then as was mentioned, in a little different vein by Alderman Santi just now, the salary budget is not real clear. It's now, okay, for non-bargaining 2.5%, as the administrator just mentioned. We have a base, if you will, CPI of 0.8, 0.7 the last couple of years. However, when I look at the one department that has no bargaining unit employees, it actually came out 2.63%. So doing it the way I was told to do it. So it's not real clear, but I think the overriding thing isn't necessarily the math on that. The overriding, I just think that council should be debating and approving a proposed overall number for the salary budget. I actually don't really care to get into the individual, this salary, that salary. To me, the people that manage those people, that's a decision that should be made by the people who manage. But the overall budget for the city should be established by council. And it's sort of there, but not there, because you really can't figure it out when you go through this budget to see it clearly where it's at. So those are the three main reasons that I did not vote for it in the committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments, discussion, questions? Alderman Santee?
Yeah, I do agree with one of the final statements from Alderman Curry in regards to, it should be just a process where we're looking at numbers for departments and not actually looking at individual numbers. I don't know how difficult that is to change, or should we look at that? You know, that's something that staff can think of and come back to us with ideas. But, you know, just kind of like, just rereading stuff, and then when I come in tonight and I bring this paperwork with me, and, you know, on page 1 it says, on the overview, you know, we continue to take a conservative approach, which we do. And it just, I'm sorry, I beg to ask the question then, are we taking a conservative approach on how we're going about our wage increases?
Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Whitmer.
Yes.
Excuse me. Alderman Condon.
Yes.
Alderman Santee.
No.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer.
Yes.
Alderman Curry.
No.
Motion carried.
Alderman Peterson?
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the mayor's statement and reports. At the annual meeting, it is my responsibility to recommend the annual appointments of municipal officers, board and commission members, and standing committees. I would just like to take this opportunity to address our leadership team here of our staff. I think that you all do a remarkable job on a daily basis in managing the various departments of this city. Ross, you're the newest member of the group, but I think you've been an outstanding addition to the group. It feels like you've been here forever doing that job, which was very seamless to have you move into that role, and I congratulate you for that. To the rest of you, I just can't tell you enough what your professionalism brings to our city, means to our city. The trust that you instill by our residents does not go unnoticed, and I truly appreciate all of your hard work on our behalf. It's hard, and you know, we look at ourselves and we say you have 8 bosses, and that's hard. So I truly admire the way that you all handle yourselves professionally. I also like to take the opportunity to thank Chad from HR Green and David from Zukowski, Rogers, Floyd, and McCardle. I think that you both are trusted experts, and we appreciate all that you do for our city. So thank you both very much. As far as the commissions and boards go, the only change this year is there was 2 resignations from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Joe Velez resigned March 30th due to schedule conflicts with his personal job. He unfortunately missed almost all the meetings this year, and so he realized that that wasn't in the best interest of the city, and he did resign. We appreciate the work that he did on our behalf. He brought a lot to that board. Brian Bromley also resigned on April 6th from the commission. So we had 2 applications on file that have been there for a while, and I met with Sean Strack, who's the chairman of the Planning and Zoning Commission, went over those applications with him, and he was very happy with those 2 appointments. So my recommendation is to approve this, the annual appointments as presented, including Susan Miller and James Walsh. James. Joe Walsh is a singer. So I'm looking for a motion on these appointments. Alderman Condon?
So moved.
Is there a second? Alderman Schaefer?
Second.
Any discussion, Alderman Condon?
No questions.
Alderman Santee?
Real briefly, I know you make the recommendation. Do we, because of our committee, committee of the whole in regards to our in-depth discussion on engineering, do we need to have that statement in there in regards to how we recruit and retain for in-house engineering? It's in the minutes tonight on page 8. Fortunately, it's, because we passed those minutes tonight. Do we need anything like that in the recommendation? I mean, because we are.
No, it's in the minutes and it was decided upon by the committee of the whole.
Okay, and so that's official document, and we'll be looking at those as when engineering projects come up to make
Correct.
some. Okay, thanks.
Alderman Glad?
Nothing.
Alderman Schaefer?
No questions.
Alderman Curry? I'm sorry, getting mixed up on the
No
names.
questions.
Alderman Curry? Alderman Wimmer?
Nothing.
Alderman Peterson?
No questions.
Please call the roll.
Alderman Condon?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Alderman Wimmer?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any committee reports this evening? Seeing none. Any staff reports this evening? Any future agenda items? Alderman Curry?
Just to chime in on that, this came up at the last meeting, it was just a reflect on the video gaming, and after thinking about it and reading the article that was referenced at the meeting, I think it's probably something that it looks like other governments are trying to address some ways to, I guess, limit it, if you will, or maybe that's not the right term, but, personally, I don't have any issues with the machines in the bars, but, I am concerned, and I've been, some constituents have approached me about facilities who it seems like their only purpose is the revenue from that. So I just think that maybe we owe it to the people to take that up as an agenda item at some point. Just to
We can
explore it, just
have
to
that
explore it.
discussion. We talked about it a little bit today, because Alderman Glad had brought it up too. Because we approved video gaming in our community and it is done by ordinance, we always have the right, as a council, you always have the right to vote no on an establishment and not issue that liquor license. They can't have the gaming without a liquor license. It would be very difficult, I think, now to go back and do something like limiting the number of machines, because we already have so many that have the machines. So, but we can definitely discuss it further and take it up.
Well, again, maybe it's for the discussion. I guess I would just ask that we look at it because, and I would not, I don't think you can do what you just mentioned. You couldn't go back
Right,
with
right.
an existing business, but you could, maybe going forward, you could do something different. And again, I just throw that out.
Mhm. No, I
Something we
appreciate
should at least look at. And if the answer is we can't, we can't. We can do
Right.
something.
Alderman Glad?
Yeah, one of the main reasons why I brought it up last week was the fact that I can recall when we first voted on whether to have video gaming in our town or not. The big push and the big move was to help support the businesses that were here at the time because of the economic state and everything else. They were hurting as far as revenues, and this was going to help them. You take the VFW, for instance, all the good that they do for our community and whatnot. And then very shortly after that, what my reservations were was happening, and that's you get all these places that come in just to get the revenue from the gaming. I don't think it really adds any additional income to the city. What we're doing is splitting it through more and more and more people and or more entities, and consequently, what we had originally intended to approve it for in the first place isn't happening. And again, in light of with other municipalities, what they're doing and everything else, that's kind of why I wanted to bring it up for discussion, see what we can do.
See what we can
If
do.
there's nothing we can, there's nothing we can do, but at least we looked at it.
The last time that we looked at it, it went to Finance and Personnel Committee. So let staff talk it over, let me talk it over with them and see what direction, if that's the right direction to go again, or is it community development, or what do we want to do, and we definitely will revisit it. All right. Thank you. Any other future agenda items? Before we adjourn, I would just like to say, it's the end of this fiscal year. It's been an honor to serve with all of you. I think that every person that holds these offices is here for the right reasons. We're here to serve our community and to do the best we can for our constituents. And I'm proud to serve with all of you, and I look forward to another year. So thank you. With that, looking for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Wilmer?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter.
Next time. Alderman Wilmer?
Motion to adjourn.
Second by Alderman Curry. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Schaefer?
Yes.
Alderman Curry?
Yes.
Alderman Wimmer?
Yes.
Alderman Peterson?
Yes.
Alderman Heim?
Yes.
Thank you.
Helen, I didn't see anything.